Welcome back to Chirpin with the Chicks, everybody. I'm Bethany Sheehan, and we have a couple special guests with us today, Jessica and Shaylin. Woo!
So I can introduce myself. Hi, my name is Shaylin. I have known Bethany for about 5 years now. I think we really bonded over Boston sports. I feel like that's how our friendship kind of formed, and we still are today. We've been to a few Bruins games together, Bruins practices. If you can't tell, that is my team. I've got a pasta jersey on right now. Um, I will admit, I have not watched many Bruins games this season, but I am a fan of the team. I'm not a bandwagoner. I've been a fan, so I just need to get ESPN Plus, and we'll be back in the groove. But that is a little
So
bit
good.
about me.
Um, Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I am Jessica. I am in Dallas, Texas. So my team is the Dallas Stars all the way through. I was born in North Carolina. I moved before I was one, though. So if I had to pick a second team, I would probably go the Hurricanes. Have always liked that franchise, but I am a Stars fan through and through.
I just learned that about you. I had no
Amazing.
idea.
It was.
Also, Jessica
So
and I are
funny, actually.
coworkers.
Yes,
Love.
I know Shaylin from work who tied me in to get to finally meet another hockey fan, Bethany.
Ooh, yes. And actually, it's funny you mentioned that because the Stars and the Canes were actually my top two picks for the Stanley Cup last season. So I love that that's the teams. So yes.
I would love if that was the cup, but
I
Yeah,
really
but
was hoping. So if you can tell, the Bruins game is on in the background. So this is going to be it's a big hockey day for us. So we'll jump into some news and updates in the NHL with the Bruins and their plethora of injuries this week. Unfortunately, the defense is starting to thin out a little bit. So it looks like spending all of that money to bulk up the offensive heavy defense is not going to work well right now. Hampus Lindholm is week to week. I think they announced he's out 6 weeks now, but originally they thought 6 to 12. I guess he's a fractured kneecap from a blocked shot. So just a brutal, no fun injury there. And then Andrew Peak is also week to week right now. So two of the Bruins defensemen, they had to reach down to Providence and pull some people up. And then obviously there was a concern about another additional injury for Brandon Carlo with that Jamie Benn hit. Um, well, since we have a Stars and Bruins fans here, this is going to be a Stars and Bruins heavy episode. And since the Stars and the Bruins played the other day, we're going to have a lot to talk about. First of all, Jamie Benn, I am so sorry that your captain is awful. And Carlo did come back from that injury. He did come back later that game, and then he's obviously playing tonight. Today, I guess. He's had a history of concussions though, so it was a scary moment. He was down for a minute. So glad Zadorov stepped up and fought Ben over that. But what do we think about that hit on Carlo? Do we think that should have been a major, ended up being a minor penalty? What are our thoughts on that?
I can start. I have a lot of thoughts on this hit. I will say, first of all, I've got to back my captain, but he has his moments. Then I'm aware he's a hated man in the NHL. Everyone's got to have one. Bruins got
we've got
Marchand,
Marchand.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
you got Marchand. We
Yeah.
have Ben. Take your pick. And I will also say I hate, and I say it's Zadorov, but I don't know if however you pronounce your player's name, but I typically very like I hate that player very much, but I will give him credit because that's exactly what you should do when your player gets crumpled into the board. So credit to him on that, and he destroyed Ben in the fight. So hats off to that. The hit,
Served.
listen, the hit, I could go both ways. I could first of all, I see why it was a major when they called it on the ice. I think if a player gets hurt, you have to assess it as a major just to be able to review it. My guess is when they reviewed it, and I'm just going to be honest here, Carlo looks back and sees Ben and he puts himself in that position. That's my honest opinion. I think he was looking for the penalty. He got the penalty, but that's the repercussions. If you see any other defensemen going for that puck, they're going to continue skating, hit it, and then go into the boards with their shoulder. He's purposely slowed down. He was wanting to hit. So I think that's why I got bumped to the minor.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised it was a minor. I know obviously the announcers for Boston were pretty adamant that it should have been a major, but I was looking at it. Obviously, like you said, he slowed down. He wasn't bracing himself for the hit, I would say, and that's why he kind of crumpled as fast as he did. I mean, Carlo's a big guy, so I was a little bit surprised that he went down that easy. It almost, I'm not going to say embellishment because like no, but like I would say like he should have braced himself for that hit, especially as somebody who has a history. Like if you know and you know how Ben is as a player, he's not going to slow down. Like maybe other guys would have skated away and left it alone, but Ben's not that person. So I think he should have braced for it. I think a minor was the right call. I hate saying it. I would have loved a 5 minute, power play there, but well, I mean, not really because the Bruins power play, but anybody would like a longer power play there, I think. And then yeah, I don't think they made the wrong call there, but I think that there have been some serious roughing inconsistencies, not even this season, but last season. And I think the major one that I keep thinking about is goalie interference.
Yeah, I I feel like you have a mix of refs of being like let them play and keep it going, and then you have the refs that are like, no, these are the new rules. So I've seen tons of I saw it in the Bruins Stars game with there is no reason for us to have a penalty shot and they're calling it, and I've seen games when there should be a penalty shot and it's a penalty. So but goaltender interference has been a huge one for a while.
I want to ask if there's any suspicion, as someone who hasn't been watching a lot of the season, but is there any suspicion amongst hockey fans about sports betting and sports gambling being part of the reffing decisions? Like, has that come up?
Yes. Yes. And that came up a lot last season because I think like during the playoffs, there were a lot of like reffing inconsistencies and people were like, did the refs have money on this game? Did they want like this, did they have the over here? I know they're not allowed. Like it's not allowed that players and refs are able to bet on the sports things, but whether there's a workaround somewhere, that's the question. Like, I'm suspicious. I'm just highly suspicious as a person in general, and I'm very superstitious as it is. So I'm like, some of these things, I'm like, like it is like I do think about it. And especially like when you look at that, like a penalty shot situation like we had, what was called on Mason Lowry was not a penalty. Like he lifted the guy's
Wasn't.
stick and batted the puck out. That is a typical defensive play. And then they call a penalty shot on it and then what's his name, Dadarov or whatever, they let him shoot a penalty shot. And like, I mean, penalty shots, it's one-on-one, it's like a shootout. So it's like the odds of you getting that goal are pretty high. I think it's suspicious.
I haven't followed the betting stuff, but I think it's also dependent on players. Like if you have McDavid in there and he has a breakaway and he gets stopped, it's an automatic penalty. Like he could not get touched and they'll probably call a penalty. Same with Connor Bedard. Like so I think a lot of it's going to depend on the player and is it home ice for the team? Is it away ice? So it's a lot of pressure for the refs. I get that.
Yeah, player by player for sure, and then team by team even in
Yeah,
the playoffs last season, that was a big thing. It
definitely.
was like which teams are getting like the short end of the stick when it comes to penalty calls. And I think something that I noticed was the Bruins were getting like heavy-handed calls on them for all of the playoffs, and then there were other teams like the Oilers and like not getting any penalties on them at all, and that it kind of streamlined their way to the Stanley Cup final. Not saying it's rigged, but it seems rigged sometimes. That's
I'll
what I'm
say
gonna
it's
say there.
I'll say it's rigged because Oilers knocked us out of the cup last year, so it was
I'm so
rigged.
mad
No.
about that. It
I'll
was
say what was
nuts.
rigged, the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight last night that I stayed
Hey,
up until 1 a.m. to watch. Ridiculous. Waste of my time.
It
hey,
was
this is
for
a
me. It
this is
was
a
like.
hockey podcast.
Sorry. I just had to comment on it.
No, that's so. I mean, I think sports now, it's like there's always the question of whether there's a script, and it's like, are we following a script here? Because I mean, like you said, the fight seemed scripted, the playoffs seem scripted. It's like, everybody kind of knows what's going to happen ahead of time, and I think that's like It's suspicious. And then, I mean, going back to goalie interference, I think that's just something that hasn't been defined enough by refs at this point. And in terms of like how much contact needs to be made on the goalie for that to be considered goaltender interference. So the Caps versus the Maple Leafs, there was like barely contact on Joe Wall, and then the goal was called back. The Blues versus the Sabres, the defense pushed the offense into the goalie, and the goalie was called back. Even in the Bruins Blues game just now, there
Y'all just
was
got
goalie
scored on.
interference that could, I think so. Damn. Okay. Well, earlier there was another goal that got called back for goalie interference. So now it's tied again. Which is
2-2.
just fantastic. Of course, as soon as it's 2-2. Of course, as soon as I start talking about the Bruins, the other team scores. Not saying that I should just stop talking about the Bruins. But yeah, so I think like there's some interesting dynamics related to what goalie interference looks like. I think the Blues Bruins goal earlier, that was a fair call, I think. It had been like the defenseman was slightly pushing into like the Bruins goalie, but then they were out of the crease, and then the guy went back into the crease to like get around the defender, and then that's where it becomes like a little bit dicey. So I don't know. That's my thoughts on that. But
The amount of games that I'll watch and I'll be like, they'll score and I'll be like, oh, that's goaltender interference, and they'll challenge it. I'm like, yeah, it's going to be taken back, and it's not, or vice versa. It's like, oh, this will definitely count as a goal, and they say goaltender interference. It's never consistent to me.
yeah, it's not. And the goal that was taken back earlier today, that one, like the announcers were talking about whether it was going to be challenged or not, and it wasn't by the Blues coaches because it was very just obviously goalie interference. And I think it's interesting that I've seen a lot more goals just automatically taken off the board rather than being challenged for goalie interference this season. I feel like last
Yeah.
season it was always like it had to have been challenged first, which is super interesting. But we have a new pyramid system. Yay! This metal board hopefully will make things a lot easier. On the bottom of the pyramid, we got the Philadelphia Flyers. They had 4 straight overtime or shootout games, and then they won 3 out of 4 of those. And then obviously, everybody's been talking about Matvei Michkov and his odds of winning the Calder Trophy this year. He had an OT winner against the Senators, which I think is, pretty awesome. The Senators have been, I think, an interesting team to watch this season now that Allmark is, their head goalie. It's kind of a little bit more fun for me to see how he's doing over there. And then like Michkov's an interesting situation because obviously like he got like benched or scratched a few weeks ago from one of the games for some mistakes that he made. Obviously, like rookies make mistakes, that's pretty normal. And I guess him and Tortorella, the coach of the Flyers, had a heated exchange on the bench, which you don't really want to see one of your like top young players arguing with the coach and then getting like scratched the next game. But it's interesting, and now they're doing like meetings more often to understand, I guess, what Tortorella is asking for as a coach, because I mean there's a language barrier. Obviously, he's a young player in the league as well. So that whole situation is pretty interesting. Any thoughts on Matvei Michkov while we're on the topic?
That's it interesting having a fight on the bench and then getting scratched next game is very
Yeah,
curious.
I mean he's a young player, so obviously like you're gonna have strong opinions sometimes.
I say props to the coach on benching him. If your player talks back to you, you're the coach. I mean, hey, I'd bench him.
Yeah,
Got to
it's
teach
like
discipline.
yeah, and I don't know if he's never like had that or if he just didn't understand why, he was being benched or what mistake that he made or whatever.
We'll give it to the
Next.
Flyers though. Sounds like they've been working hard. Four
They haven't
overtime
worked.
shootouts in a row are rough.
That's a lot.
A
And
lot of
think about
hockey.
like all of the other games you have to do. Oh, I would hate that. It would not be fun. But I mean, good on them. I'm going to Philly in like a month for a game. So I'm excited to see how that goes. But I'm not going to be rooting for Philly. So, sorry in advance to all the Philly fans who are going to hate me, but whatever. Okay. Seattle. Okay. Okay, so obviously these two teams that I've put at the bottom of the pyramid have not been the best teams in the league, nor have they been, necessarily great in the past couple of years. But I'm giving the Kraken credit where credit's due because they've had 3 straight wins, including against the Golden Knights, who are at the top of the Pacific right now. So I think they deserve a little bit of credit on that one. They also had like this crazy rally against the Blue Jackets. They ended up winning 5-2, but the Blue Jackets outshot them. I think it was like 19-6 in the first period and scored 2. So the Blue Jackets came out guns ablaze and then ended up losing the game because the Kraken had like an insane rally in the second period. So that was also like an interesting game to watch, and it's kind of hard sometimes when you go down 2 to like get that energy back. So mad respect for them doing that.
I love a
I just
comeback
respect
win.
they have a female coach. That's all. That's why I support them. I think that's cool.
Jessica Campbell, icon, honestly. Yeah, she's been awesome. And it's fun to see somebody behind the bench who like represents, women in sports. Yes, women in sports. Okay. The next on the list is the Edmonton Oilers, if you can see. Ta-da! Okay. So, the Oilers. Obviously, we talked a little bit about the Oilers and Connor McDavid earlier. Connor McDavid now has 1,000 points in his career. We claps for that. He's the 4th fastest person to get to that milestone, so that's pretty impressive. Actually, somebody asked me a couple weeks ago if I thought he was going to be the next to break like the Wayne Gretzky goal record. I don't think so. That's just one girl's opinion, but I personally believe that he's like big on assists because he's got some great net front presence in front of him with Zach Hyman. Obviously Draisaitl's also on that team, so it's a star-studded forward team, so I think it's going to be tough for him to get there. But the Oilers also got 3 straight wins, and they've moved pretty much from the bottom of the barrel of the Pacific to in I think 4th place or something now. So good on them. I was hoping they'd have a terrible season because I like to see different teams win and go to the Stanley Cup playoffs, but alas, here we are. Obviously, I'm sure you have some pretty strong opinions on the Oilers, so
It's still a tough subject. I still feel the pain. But no, I'm very happy for McDavid. I don't think he'll reach Gretzky. I don't think anyone will reach Gretzky. You have to realize like hockey's at such a different place now. Like it's a lot harder to score a goal than it was. Like just the level of athletes now versus when Gretzky was playing. Like Gretzky was a different caliber to everyone else, but there's a ton of players that are like up there with McDavid. And the fact that he's excelling this much, I'm really happy to see that for him. But when we play him, I'd like to shut him out. I'm glad it wasn't against us when he got his points.
I know that would have been really funny actually. But yeah, I think goaltending has improved a lot, obviously. Ovechkin is gonna, I think he'll break it within the next year. But I think he also started like before goaltending was as elite as it is now. So for somebody in the future to break it, I feel like it's gonna be pretty difficult. But moving on to our next. The Winnipeg Jets. No one is surprised by this pick. No one is surprised by this pick because they are like what, 15-2? Like they're having an incredible season. It's actually pissing me off because if they end up being like the best team like in NHL history, they're gonna uproot the Bruins. So I won't be very happy about that. But they did lose to the Lightning the other day, so I'm not putting them any higher than where I have them in 3rd place. obviously, like, you can't win game after game. Like, people, you gotta lose at some point. So I'm like, okay, good on the Lightning. I almost put them on the list this week, except they didn't win any other game except for that one against the Jets. So I couldn't, in my right mind, put them on this list. And then obviously the Jets, we've talked about the Jets scoring diversity. They've got a lot of great players. And then they have Connor Hellebuck, who he's already the top contender for the early Vezina odds, which is no surprise to anybody. I think everybody saw that coming. So
I will say, if the Jets have their record-breaking season, as long as they follow the Bruins track when y'all had your record-breaking season, I'll be here for it.
yeah, first round playoff exit. Yeah, you would like that one
Yeah,
too.
against the wild
Make it a
against the
little
wild
easier for
card,
Dallas.
losing a 3-0 series lead, I wouldn't mind
Don't
it.
remind us.
See how you feel about the Oilers is how we feel about the Panthers. Is like, okay, like we just can't beat this team. It's ridiculous. And then yeah, in the playoffs, and then just like ugh. Anyways, okay,
Put them up there. We
put
love
them
to see
up
it.
there. All right, go off. I'm
All right,
ready.
listen, I'm sorry for your Bruins, but we smoked y'all 7-2. We were on fire. The game before, we beat Penguins 7-1, scoring 6 in the first period. I don't know why we couldn't keep the momentum going. Like, I surely thought after 6-0, after the first period, we'd get to double digits. Call me never satisfied with my team, but listen, we were kind of on fire this week. We did lose to the Jets. I was hoping to give them a fight, but as we just said, it's the Jets. I'll allow it. But other than that, we've been great. So I give it to us.
Wait, 6 goals in first period. How many of those were on power plays? Do you remember?
Our power play sucks.
Because that's like very impressive.
It was crazy. I didn't want the period to end.
That's
I did
awesome.
not want it to end. I don't remember how many. That's a good question. Our power play,
I
though,
know
that's
there was at least one though.
yeah.
I don't know how many, but I know, like, I remember looking at the score sheet afterwards and being like, there's gotta be.
Our sixth goal was a power play goal. And then our last goal, our seventh goal, that was outside the first period, was a power play goal.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
The
crazy.
thing I'm loving that we're having depth to our team. Like we've got a lot of players scoring, but not our top line. Like I think of those, we got 14 goals combined. I think 2 of them have been from our top line. Everything else. So I'd
Interesting.
love to see our top line step it up and be where I want them to be. All the other lines are doing great.
Do you think they'll
That's
move
how I feel
players
with the
around
Bruins.
to balance out the lines or no? Do you think everyone's working well together
You
as
know,
is?
our coach probably will, and that's where I'll disagree. I think our lines should stay how they are, but I'm sure I already tonight's game we switched up our lines, and I'm not sure why since we just won 7-2 and 7-1, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think sometimes teams try to like mix up the lines to like get the people who are producing the most to like produce more on other lines and get people kickstarted. But whether that works or not is has yet to be seen. I know the Bruins tried that when the fourth line was doing the most, like scoring the most out of any other Bruins line. And they tried to put like, I think they put one, like it was like first line, second line, third. And I was like, guys, like why are we splitting up the fourth
What's
line when
going
they've
on?
been
Yeah.
producing so much? And it didn't end up like improving anybody else's game. So I think yeah, I'm interested to see how the Stars do tonight, because if they're
It's a
mixing up
tough
the
game tonight.
lines,
Yeah, it's a tough game
yeah.
tonight. Well, I'll tell you what, we just signed Matt Dumba. I don't know if y'all know that player. I cannot stand him. I think he's a
I
dirty
hate
player,
him.
but I hate him because I didn't want to sign him because he just sucks. His stats are horrible. And we scratched him the last 2 games, and it's been great. Well, tonight we're playing Wild, which is his team that we got him from, and so we wanted to throw him back in the
Oh.
lineup, I guess. And I'm like, why? It's been great.
I love when players are like terrible statistically and
I
then
know.
they're like, but they're also dirty. I'm like, pick a struggle. Are you gonna be bad or are you gonna be like a dirty player? Like you can't be
I
both.
know. Like you suck and you're eating at penalty minutes for us. It's not
Yeah,
helpful.
absolutely ridiculous. Oh,
Hurting the team.
terrible.
Very much.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. To our number one
Sorry.
slot, and nobody should be surprised by this, the New Jersey Devils. Okay. And we know how I feel about the Devils. I will be seeing them next week against the Caps. Hopefully they can pull out a win when I'm there, because the last game they won the last game I went to, I think. Anyways, so the Devils, they're so back. They're so back. They lost to the Sharks last weekend, 1-0, which was brutal, but it was hilarious at the same time because the only Sharks goal actually went in off of a Devils player. So really, the Devils kind of won because they did score the only goal. They just scored it for the other team, which is
I'm with you.
embarrassing.
I'm with you.
Shaylin, you look so shocked.
I'm getting flashbacks to the McAvoy kicking the puck. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Last year's playoffs, right?
Yeah. Not great, not the shining moment of the Devils, but then they beat the Panthers twice. And so everything is forgiven because I hate the Panthers, and the Devils were playing great. We had, obviously we just got out of a Brett summer, but dare I say, I think we're gonna have a Brett fall and winter because Jesper Bratt got a Brattrick, as we're gonna call it. So yeah, I mean, he played excellent. Obviously, like, having 3 goals against the Panthers is a feat in and of itself. And then Stefan Nason scored 2 goals as well, which, he's not supposed to be like a super heavy offense guy, but he's been really great for the Devils as well. And then the Hughes brothers all over the scoreboard. So that's always fun to see as well. Luke Hughes is back from injury, and he hasn't been scoring many. I don't think he scored a goal yet, but he's at least been, assisting in things on goals. So it's fun to watch him play. He's been having a lot of really great defensive plays, honestly, which is interesting because I think a lot of people wanted him benched last season because he was too heavy on offense and not enough defense, and now he's switching it, and now people are also still mad. So, there's that. And then again, I've been saying over the past couple weeks, the Brat Hughes and not Meyer line is continuing to be offense heavy, and an offense heavy producing line. Now that they've fixed it, I've said that for, the past couple months that Brat Hughes Meyer never worked. I was right. Coach Keefe, hire me. I'm begging for a job, but yeah, I think that line just has continued to be just fantastic. So, but on that note, when we were talking about the Devils here, did anybody see that coming? Did anybody think that the Devils could beat the Panthers twice? Thoughts?
First of all, I hate the Panthers, so I'm very happy. I think Panthers are my least favorite team. I did not see the Devils beating them twice. Um, when I saw that, I was very shocked, but I'm very happy. Devils is a tough team to play. They're quick and they've got some skill on their team, so I'm happy for it because it's the Panthers' demise. I'm here for it.
Yeah, they're a young team, so they're fast, and now that they're like getting like not old, but like they're not all like rookies now, I think they've been really great.
Tuesday we have, I think, Panthers and Jets are playing, so that's going to be a good game. I'll be ready to watch.
That
I
will
don't
be
even know who to
really,
go
really
for.
interesting.
It's not possible, but I hope both teams lose. I hate both teams.
I'm like, okay, maybe like overtime and shootout, and then the Jets win. Like, that'll be fine because I don't
Yeah.
actually know, because I want it to be 0-0 till the last 5 minutes. Because if it goes to overtime, then both teams get a point, and
I would
then
say I
it's
don't
like
want
a
both of them to get
win-win
a
pretty
point. Yeah.
much. So that's like not really. The Jets, I need them to lose more. But I
They're
feel
at
like
least they're
it's
not in
also
your division.
I know, but like also I feel like the not gonna like, toot our own horn or whatever, but I feel like the Western Conference sometimes has it a little bit easier because like they have the Ducks and the Sharks and Chicago. So I feel like between the two conferences, I feel like I'd rather play the Western Conference teams. And even Seattle's not doing that great right now, even though they've been on, the list. But
Everyone always disses on the Western Conference, but there's some good teams over here.
some. So that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you to Shaylin and Jessica for joining me and having a little bit of a conversation. But yeah, so make sure you like, subscribe, follow all of our Instagrams and socials. I will tag both Jessica and Shaylin in our post that we do on Instagram so you know who they are. Chirps out.
Chirps out, love it.
Chirps out.